Good morning folks, and welcome to the workshop. I'm going to be doing a review of Roke irons. Now, I've been trying to do this for an absolute age, and I was speaking with Roke, and I'm not too sure if it was the language barrier or what, but we never quite managed to get on the same page. And I eventually bought a set of Roke irons to review. And I went on the website to get the specifications as best I could, only to find they're out of date. These are the new ones. And this is what we're going to be reviewing. So, kindly, Bill from Rocky Mountain Leather Supply out of the States, through Roke, got me a set of the new irons. And they turned up a while ago, and I've taken a bit of time getting around to this, but I've been using them. So whilst I may sound surprised with some of the things that I say, the truth is I'm not, and I know what's coming up. When I opened the box and these turned up, the first impression without a shadow of a doubt was, wow, they look gorgeous. Now, we can see there's a big bear type paw, and this tiny little puny human iron just seems to get lost in it. And I thought they were a little small when I picked them up. But as you play with them, as you start looking, you can see there is this lovely chamfering going on all the corners. And if truth be told, they're not actually as small as they look. But the chamfering just makes them seem petite. They're not, they're sleek. And as you hold them, they've got a rounded sort of feel to them. It's attention to detail, and it's this attention to detail that just makes them look absolutely stunning. Now, I'm going to go on a limb, I don't know, and I will be corrected. I'll be educated on a number of things I'm going to say on this video. I'm not going to go into too much information about the steel. All I will say is it's ASSAB alloy steel. That really doesn't tell me an awful lot, so I googled it, and that tells me that it is a machinery steel offering high strength in small and medium sizes, and apparently it's used for high strength bolts. Not really any the wiser, but what that does tell me is that this steel that they're using to make this tool is a lot stronger than it actually needs to be, and it's going to do the job. And then it looks like it's been black oxidized. So they're the two things that I'm going to be educated on if I've got either of those wrong. But they do the job, they are strong, they feel gorgeous. The contrast of the polished teeth and edges to the black oxide finish makes them look even more gorgeous. And I really like them. These are a set of tools that I'd have in the work. I'd have a full set of these in the workshop any day of the week. They're gorgeous. They are pricking irons, not stitching irons. And if we look very, very carefully, let's get a bit of red leather. Get me, eh? Red. If we look, we can see that the tooth broadens out from the point towards the body quite a bit. But if we angle it this way, we can see there that for the first 5mm of the tooth is actually fairly slim. If we do it the other way, we can see that the centre teeth are straightish, but the two outer teeth, indicative of many pricking irons, are broader. So that can have an impact as well. So they are, without a shadow of a doubt, pricking irons. But for thin leather, we can actually use these as stitching irons because we've got a lot of tolerance towards the first 5mm of the tooth. The teeth are set at 40 degrees, so that should give us a nice looking angle to our stitch. There's loads and loads of information that I've scribbled down, my thoughts and feelings. If you go to my website, www.armitageLeather.com, and you follow the link, go and find the pricking iron review. It's on the front page, just scroll down, you'll find it by the shop. And you can download this, and it's got all the specifications, all the different sizes, a link to where you can buy it, the prices. So yeah, we'll touch on the prices very, very quickly. On the Amy Roke site, they're in US dollars, and currently for a 2-tooth and an 8-tooth, that'll set you back $137. That works out to about £104 plus customs, import duty, taxes, wherever you are, whatever it costs. You've got Aaron at Rocky Mountain that's already paid all of the taxes and everything, so you go to him, you can buy them direct from him, and you can probably get them a bit quicker if you're in the States. If you're in the UK, you're probably best off going straight to Amy Roke. The website's on the link, and I'll stick a website down here. So, proof of the pudding. It's all well and good saying, oh, it's gorgeous, it looks nice, it's made of good stuff, but what does it do? And that's really what we're here to see, isn't it? We want to see what it does. So I'm going to set my dividers to about 4mm. I'm going to stick with the red. Getting a bit leery in my old age, you know. Bit of colour. I haven't just got brown in the workshop. I've got brown and a bit of red. So the reason I'm using the red is it actually shows off the hole really nicely. So all I'm doing there is just pricking the hole. So I haven't gone through, no penetration. This is 2mm thick, so I've probably gone in there about 1mm. And we can see there we've got a lovely, clean hole that is 2.2mm wide and very, very thin. And I think if I were to tap that down, that looks very clean. We can still see it, but it's still very, very clean. Let's push it. Let's go through. Have a look. So a little bit uneven there, just even it up on that side. So I've gone through there about 1.5mm, which I think, to be fair, for this sort of leather is more than enough. So we'll use our pulling block, and we can see there we still have a very, very clean hole. A little larger, but no larger than any of the other stitching irons. I think that's more than acceptable. Let's see what the hammer does. So I'm going to move it over to a leg, because it might be a little bit quieter. Not much. Well, that's not bad, is it? That still closes up really, really nicely, even though we've gone through a lot further. Let's find a new bit. Let's go through a lot. Right, so I've gone through 2mm of leather, and I've probably poked about 3mm out the back. So I've really gone in. I'm up to that 5mm length. Huge hole. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. That is humongous, isn't it? Let me tap it down. Okay. Well, that recovers. I could do with tapping that hole a little bit more, but that's not bad. So we can see what's happening is the tip of the teeth are sharp because they're cutting our slit, but the edges are not. They're rounded because they've been polished. So as we go further in, it's not making the hole bigger by cutting it bigger, it's making the hole bigger by stretching it. And that's naturally going to start shrinking back when we're finished. And that's acceptable. Now, normally I stitch a single piece of leather and we have a look at that, or I'll pre-prick 2 pieces of leather and stitch them together. On this occasion, because of the type of iron that it is, and I want to kind of push it a little bit, is I've got 2 pieces of this 2mm Botero shoulder that I've glued together. I'm going to make 3 rows of holes, and we're going to have a look at stitching those. Let me go and grab them and make the holes so we can see before I start stitching what the holes are going to look like. So here I have a couple of pieces of Botero glued together, two 2mm pieces, so twice as thick as what we were playing with a moment ago. And we're going to punch all the way through from one side. It's always nice to mix it up a little bit. So we'll have a row of holes across the top. Just swap the old glasses over so I can see what I'm doing. And another thing about these irons is they've got this swell business going on in the middle. And it's as if you can hold it here, or like so. And both work. And I'm finding that rather comfortable. I'm holding it high. I can see nice and clearly because it's taking my hand away. And I'm getting on with it. At no point, yes, they do feel a little small in my big bare paw hands. But the truth of the matter is at no point have I struggled to use these. They do not feel small. They feel sleek. So let's have a look. Now we're just beginning to poke through the back of this leather. So this is now 4mm thick. If I go a millimetre, we're at our 5mm cusp. I'm just going to give it one more, just to settle it into the pad, and one more thump. So that's about 1 millimetre through. That's enough. So I can now pop that off, and we can see how big that hole is. And that's a good sized hole. That's a chunky hole. But what I'm not going to do is tap it down. So if we put that next to that, that is a big difference. We may have found the absolute maximum that this iron can take. We won't know until we've tapped down. In fact, let's do that now. Sorry about the noise. Yeah, I'm not that concerned. That's not bad. Let's open that up a little bit more. That's lovely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 rows of holes. The top row is going to be my tiger thread, braided polyester. The second row, I'm going to use the Yufeng 0.55, that'll do. And then the third row, I shall use the Yufeng 0.45. And I think those 3 threads will give this iron a good run for its money. So let me make the rest of those holes, take it to the clam. Whilst I'm doing there, vote what colour thread you want to see, and then we'll find out if you're right when we come to the clam. What colour did you choose? Choose yellow. If you did, you win. So we've got our 3 rows of holes, 8 stitches per inch, Amy Roke 3.38 stitching irons. Really happy with how they're performing. We are pushing them to an absolute limit. We are using them how they shouldn't be used, because let's face it, this is how people are going to use them. And we're going to find out if we can make holes in 4mm thick piece of leather, and if it works. Now, if we're pre-pricking and we do our 2 pieces of 2mm, we know that's going to work because the holes look really good. But not everybody's going to do that. So we're going to test them the way that I think people are going to use them. So I'm using 0.6mm braided polyester, Ritzer 25 tiger thread from Abbey, England. You all know this is my preferred thread. You all know why. I'm using number 4 John James needles. They suit the thread, they suit the SPI. I've got slippy fingers. So there's a little bit of something that you're going to pick up. So slip your fingers or slip your needle, get some beeswax to give the needle a rub, and it gives you a little bit of grip, but it doesn't stop the needle going through the hole. We'll do the other needle as well, and that's going to make life a little easier. Now, as always in these situations, you can see the stitch before I can. So I can presume that it's a good looking stitch, but you can see if it is or it isn't. I suspect, I know it is. It's a good iron. It does the job. It's well made. It's strong. It's got these little finishing touches that it doesn't need, like the chamfering to the edge or the little swollen section towards the base of the shaft. It just presents. I've got a text. That means I've got a friend. It presents itself so well. It looks the part and it performs. And we can see here that it is sailing through this leather, 4mm thick. I wouldn't go any thicker than 4mm. I think that's your limit. I think, to be fair, 4mm is pretty much a limit for most things anyway. And you're looking at pre-pricking beyond that. And if you had two pieces of 2mm thick leather, pre-pricking may be the way to go forward, because you know on the back we are going to get a face stitch, whereas doing it this way, because we know how the stitch wants to turn, this is exactly why you see me doing things like this, because I'm turning the face stitch on my right hand side to present the best angle possible. That's detrimental to the back, which as I do that, it undoes it on the back, which flattens the stitch. So if we have the two holes, instead of the two holes being the same, we cross it, then we have a far better looking stitch on both sides. We have a face stitch on both sides. And if you struggle with that concept, then you need to be watching my Vimeo channel. I'll go into a lot of detail there on that. However, I suspect we will get a reasonable stitch on the back of this piece of leather. So that is the stitch that we've been given. I need to have a look. Wow. Actually, that yellow and red looks really nice. I like that. The back, well, can't argue with that. That's not bad. Now, we've not tapped down, and we're not going to tap down yet. We're going to do all the stitching first, then we're going to tap down. So, I'm going to set myself up with the 0.55 Yufeng braided polyester thread, and we'll have a look at that, how that kicks in. Let me get that started. So I'm well underway here with the 0.55 Yufeng thread. Now, there's not a big difference between 0.6mm and 0.55mm. I really do appreciate that. But they are different threads insofar as the tiger thread is very slightly flat, whereas the Yufeng is most definitely round. So it gives a different looking stitch. And it's always worth measuring them both up against each other. You won't really see me doing a huge amount with linen because I constantly snap it. I don't do delicate work. I over-engineer my stuff, and as a result I put a fair bit of power into my leather because I'm using bridle and heavy shoulder, so I can apply a good bit of tension with my stitch run. So the linen doesn't like that, it snaps, and if it doesn't snap it furs and it looks a little bit tatty over time. So I prefer the braided polyester, and I'm quite liking this Yufeng, and I'm including it in more reviews recently because I think it's strong, it's durable, and it gives a pleasing stitch. It's easy to stitch. There's an initial stretch at the outset, but the truth of the matter is it stitches rather nice, and I think it looks good. So I'm just going to finish off these couple of stitches here, have a quick look, and then we will move on to a different stitch, and this is where we're going a little bit more delicate, and we're going to use the 0.35. No, we're not. We're going to use the 0.45. I think the 0.35 for 8 stitches per inch is a little bit too shallow. So let's have a look-see there. Me first. That's not bad. I like that. Now, the one thing that we do know about the Yufeng is when we've stitched it, an opacity comes to the stitch and it loses its colour. But once we tap down, that colour seems to come back. So we're not that worried at the moment. But I've got to say, out of the two, I'm liking the Yufeng very much. Let me set myself up with the 0.45, which is very, very slightly thinner, and then we'll have a look at that. So I'll be back in a moment. Here we are, a good way into the 0.45, and already what's occurring to me is this hole is a little large for this thread. If we were to make the holes like we did on the 2mm, I think that size, that shape hole suits this thread better. What I'm worried about here is when I apply tension, that we've applied tension to the thread to the big hole, and the hole may not close up properly around it. So we're going to have to see. That's the offset of going through 4mm of leather using a stitching iron like a pricking iron. But I do know that most people that buy the Amy Roke, not all, but most people are using them as stitching irons. So I thought I would push it to its limit, and I think its limit is 5mm, and we've gone right to that today, if not a little over. So this is the 0.45 thread. I can't see it yet. You certainly can see this. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be happy with this because of the size of the hole. I think that's going to have a huge impact on its overall look. But the only way to find out is to actually do it. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to cut it out the review. I'm going to leave it in because it's important you know stuff like this. Actually, you know, that doesn't look bad. I thought it wouldn't look as good as it does. I thought it would look a little sunk in, where the hole was too big and the thread has just sucked into the leather too much. But if truth be told, that doesn't look too bad. Let's go back to the board, show you how I'm going to tap down, because I'm not going to make you listen to me bang it all down. I'll show you what I do, and then you can have a look at it after I've tapped it down, and we'll take it from there. So there we go, the 3 rows of stitching. And when I lay it flat and we look at it under the light, bearing in mind this is also compounded by the opacity of the thread, the bottom row looks really sunk in. I'm looking at it and it looks all right, but I'm also looking at the camera and it doesn't look all right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get a steel block, domed cobbler's hammer, and I'm going to beat it into submission. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you watch it, but I'll turn the sound down. That made a bit of a difference, didn't it? Let me zoom in. What do you think of that? Now, I think the bottom row is a little sunk in. I think the thread is struggling to really show its worth because we made that hole so big. I think if we were to not go in quite as deep, and if we went through our 2mm and we started with a hole like this, the 0.45 would excel. That's where this would look really good. But because we've gone in 4mm, which is far too much for this iron, it's not what it's designed for at all. You know, we've gone all that way in there, and we can see, let's get that cleanly in frame. So we can see there that that is really beginning to open the hole up. There. And that is what's causing the issue with our fine little thread down here. We look at the other two look absolutely fine. And maybe it's the wrong way of going about it, doing the wrong thing with the tool, but I do know what people are using these for, and if we're using them as pricking irons, then we know for a fact they're going to work, and we know for a fact they're going to work exceptionally well because they're so clean. We can see the evidence there. That's just going to be beautiful. If we double prick for using an awl, it's going to work. If double prick for using the iron going all the way through for 2mm, 2.5mm, it will work a dream. We've pushed it to its limit. It's still coped. I think if I use red thread, or if that was black leather and black thread, we wouldn't be whinging as much. I think, to be fair, really, it's not as bad as I'm making out. I think we've lost a little bit of colour on the thread, but it's a good stitch. It's clean. It looks nice. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take it back. It actually looks rather nice, and we have made that hole big, but we've closed it up again. That's a clean looking stitch. I think with a different colour, that would present itself completely different. Now, what's the back look like? Well, that's not too bad either, is it? We've got a bit of muck going on. But bearing in mind, this is very much the back and not the front, we have a reasonable stitch appearing. It looks all right. We're happy with that. This fuyang seems to get dirty very, very quickly, or it loses its opacity, or it becomes opaque. Loses its vibrancy when put under tension. But that actually still looks all right. This is the back. That's the front. That's not bad. That's better. Right, proof of the pudding. There we are. Amy Roke, buy them. They're gorgeous. They work. Look at that. A little bit of a more in-depth test with this iron, because I've been waiting to do this for an absolute age, and I was a little bit excited when I found out that I was getting them. And I've hung on to them far, far too long. But we can see what they're capable of. I've pushed them a little further than they really should go, but I think they've coped. I think they've coped really, really well, and that shows the versatility of something of this calibre. Folks, I hope that helps. Yet another review of yet another iron. Download the sheet. It tells you all about what SPI they come in, how many teeth you can get, how much they cost, where you can get them. The link's down the bottom. ArmitageLeather.com. If you struggle with any of the techniques, the stitching or the like, go and check out my Vimeo channel. It's only $2.99 a month. There are loads of videos on there. They're all there to help you progress. Folks, I hope that helps. Take care.